So now we're going to cook our chicken for our healthy chicken parmesan. What I have here, I just pulled it out of the refrigerator. It's some really beautiful free-range chicken. I cut the cutlets myself. It's about equal to one chicken breast cut in half on the thick end, and then the thin end, we kind of left the thin end the way it is. So we're just going to use a little bit of olive oil, and we're going to saute it in this non-stick pan. So I'm going to put my pan on. High, and we're going to let that heat up until just as the pan starts to smoke. While that's heating up, I'm going to take my chicken breast, and I have about 2 layers here, so I can't season them both layers at once, but I also can't cook all of it at once. I'm going to cook probably 4, maybe 5 pieces at one time. If I try to cook more than that, the pan is going to get too crowded. It's not going to get a nice saute. It's not going to get nice and brown, which is what we want, and it's just not going to taste good. So we're going to cook it in batches, and then we're going to move it to this pan where we're going to eventually put it in the oven once we add the sauce and some other stuff to it. But for now, I'm going to season. And don't be afraid to put a decent amount of salt and pepper on your food, because that's what's going to give some nice flavor. You know, we don't want to over salt. Certainly nobody wants too salty food, and salt isn't all that healthy, but we want a little bit of salt. You know, we want to have some flavor in every piece. I don't know if you can see, but the pan is starting to smoke just a little bit, and that's just where we want it. We're going to take some olive oil, and once again, remember, this is a healthy dish, so we're not looking to use a ton of fat. Just really enough to coat the pan. And you know what? Actually, I didn't even want to use that much, so I'm going to dump a little bit out right in the sink. And then I'm going to take my breasts, and I'm going to put the seasoned ones, seasoned side down. Turn this fan up just a bit so we don't smoke up the house. It's going to be a little loud. We're just about finished doing our chicken. You know, that was the first pan full, nice and golden brown. We got the second pan full, also nice and golden brown. We're not cooking it all the way through. Remember, we're just getting it nice and brown on the outside. When it's brown on both sides, which this just about is, we're going to move it all over to our pan. And the plan is to get it all in one layer. And at this point, it doesn't matter if it's crowded because of the kind of cooking we're going to do in the oven. It's going to be covered in sauce, so being crowded is okay. Now, very quickly, before this pan starts to burn, I'm going to take some white wine, and I'm going to deglaze this pan with it. What does deglazing mean? It means you're dissolving all the stuff, the brown bits, some people call it. The fond is what chefs call it. But it's basically all the good stuff that's stuck to the pan, that if you let that pan go too long, that stuff's going to burn and it's going to taste bad. But what we did is we dissolved that before it started to burn. We used just about a cup and a half of wine, 2 cups of wine. And what we're going to do is let that cook on high. And we're doing 2 things there. I think you might have seen some flames come out there from the top for a second. That's the alcohol burning off. Wine is not like whiskey. Whiskey or liquor, if you cook with that, you have to be very careful. You can have a big, huge flame. It was a little flame, but wine is not so alcoholic that it's going to explode. But we still want to cook the alcohol out because we're going to be serving this to the family. We don't want my kids getting drunk. So cook all that alcohol out, but we're also reducing it and we're concentrating those flavors, and it's going to do a couple of things. We're going to add some of this sauce to here once this reduces a little bit. I found that adding the wine, it lightens the dish up, and it's because once you stick it in the oven, it reduces more while it's baking, and adding the wine really gives the whole dish a nice flavor and a nice lightness. So that's why we're doing it. This is kind of my own recipe that I came up with. What we're going to do in advance, we'll kind of take you through it. As I said, we're going to add the sauce in here. In just about 2 minutes, we're going to do that. It just needs to reduce just a little bit more. We're going to add that sauce in. Probably we're going to add 2 cups of sauce to that, maybe a little bit more. We're going to just kind of simmer that for a moment until it gets all cooked together. Then we're going to layer that over the chicken. What we're going to do is we're going to put 2 different kinds of cheeses. We're going to put a little bit of goat cheese, a little bit of grated pasta cheese. Some people like to use Parmesan cheese on their pasta grated. Other people like to use Romano cheese on their pasta grated. When we put this dish all together, we're going to grate a little cheese on there, and we're not going to probably use a ½ ounce of cheese. It's almost like a seasoning, it's so little cheese. So we're going to use a little bit of that cheese and then a little bit of the goat cheese, and the end result is going to be a dish with the nice tomato and cheesy flavors, but it's still going to be a lot lighter than a traditional dish. Now, while I've been doing all that talking, you can see that we've reduced this wine, which started out as about 1.5 cups, to probably no more than a ½ cup at this point. And it's starting to get a little thick. We've taken all the stuff, and you can see how it's nice and brown. That's all good chicken flavor that we've got in there, and that's just about time. So I'm going to add some sauce, but it's probably going to be around 2 cups. That's about a cup. You know what, we're going to do more like 3 cups. I think we're going to need to cover this chicken. So we're going to let that simmer just about 2 minutes. In the meantime, I've got some boiling water that I've boiled, and I'm going to turn the heat back on. I had turned it off because it was at a full boil. I'm going to turn the heat back on, and while we're finishing this chicken in the oven, we're going to be cooking the pasta, and we're going to time it so that everything's ready just about the same time. That way we can put the dish all together, and it'll be ready together. What we're going to do is we are going to turn the heat off, and we are going to pour this all over. And now I'm going to top it with a little bit of cheese. As I told you, we're going to take this beautiful light goat cheese, brand new package. We're going to open it up. For a little extra flavor, I'm going to take some more fresh basil leaves. And this is not a gourmet dish, it's a family style dish. We're just going to put a few basil leaves, a little fresh extra basil leaves right in here. Try to put at least one on every little piece of chicken. Once again, it's going to get cooked in a very hot oven. I've got the oven preheating to 400 degrees. I have it on the convection setting on my oven because I really want it to cook fast. If you don't have a convection oven, just turn the oven up to 425 and you'll get the exact same result. I'm going to use my fingers, which are very clean, and we're just going to put a little dollop of this goat cheese. The last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grate just a few grates of the Parmesan cheese and a few grates of the Romano cheese right on top. This is ready to go in the 400-degree oven. The chicken is not cooked through, it's still raw inside, but it's a chicken breast, so we don't want to overcook it. It's probably going to take just about 6 to 8 minutes in the oven to cook. The pasta that we're going to be cooking tonight takes about 9 minutes to cook. So what we're going to do is we're going to toss the pasta in, and just after we toss the pasta in, we'll put it in the oven, and we'll do that in just a moment. Whenever you're cooking pasta, you want to use a very liberal amount of salt in the water. More than you think, because remember, this is a huge thing of water that we're throwing away. We're just trying to season the pasta. So we're going to put about 2 tablespoons of salt, maybe even a little bit more, because it's a big pot of water. I've popped that in. I'm going to put my kitchen timer on for 9 minutes, just like it says. I was warming my bowl in the oven a little bit, so it's nice and warm, my pasta bowl. I've stirred the pasta once, and I'm going to probably have to stir it 2 or 3 more times just to make sure it doesn't stick. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my chicken in the oven. So I'm going to go ahead and open the oven. We're leaving it uncovered. We're putting it in the top half of the oven in the 425-degree oven. And that's going to cook just about the same time, 8 minutes or so, which is left on the timer from the pasta. We are going to keep the light on and just keep a little bit of an eye on it because it could cook a little bit quicker. Alongside with our pasta, we're going to serve a very simple arugula salad. We're going to serve an arugula salad with just a little bit of lemon, olive oil, and a few shavings of Parmesan cheese. It's about the simplest salad you could put together in the world, but it's a very delicious salad. You get a nice salad plate. I'm using a little bowl here. You put the arugula, and what we're going to do is we're going to serve the oil and lemon juice on the side so that people can put as much or as little as they want. And also, when we serve it at the table, it's not going to look all soggy. It's going to look nice and delicious. Parmesan cheese, and we're going to take a potato peeler. And we're literally going to use that, and we're just going to put a couple of shavings, a little corset rind on that black pepper, put just a pinch of salt, not much, just a tiny, not even a pinch, a few grains on each one. And we're going to go over into the oven and take a look at the chicken. Chicken's cooking very nicely. It's probably going to need about another 3 or 4 minutes, where the pasta only needs about another 1.5 minutes, but that's fine because we've got to drain the pasta, we've got to toss the pasta a little bit, so no worries. We're going to be in very good shape. We're going to have a delicious Italian dinner. And then we have this beautiful chicken, and just to make the chicken look pretty, we're going to do the same thing we did. Anytime you cook a dish with basil and tomatoes like this, it's always nice to toss a little extra basil on at the end for a little fresh color, a little fresh flavor, and it just makes the dish look so much more festive when you do it that way. All in all, a very healthy, delicious meal.